Francisco, it is a gorgeous looking day out right now. I'm looking at the window behind FP and seeing the fog kind of burn back. I've been driving in this morning, man. There was a lot of fog coming in. So I was driving over the Bay Bridge. I couldn't even see the city, FP. That's how thick the fog was. Part of me was thinking, like, man, is the city even there? I mean, obviously the city was there, but yeah, it was very, very misty on the way in. And I love those misty San Francisco mornings. I love it when it's foggy out. I love that dreary weather. This is my kind of weather. It just makes me feel nice and calm and cool and comfortable. Much like our sponsor for this segment, which is Golden State Lumber, serving the Bay Area for 3 generations. When you succeed, we succeed. Visit goldenstatelumber.com. This conversation we've been having here regarding the 49ers this morning is obviously the early kind of proto-rumor that we're getting at the start of this 49ers offseason is that obviously Brandon Aiyuk, he's going to be up for a contract extension this offseason. The question is, what's going to happen in that regard? Is he going to get extended? Is he going to hold out? Is he going to get traded? The question I had kind of in playing off of that is, we know that Christian McCaffrey is going to be a part of this offense next year. He is not going anywhere. But if the 49ers had to make a difficult decision on offense, and we're operating purely in the realm of hypothetical right now. None of this is actually happening in the near future. This is going to be a long-term story that we're going to be paying attention to all summer long in regards to the Niners and which playmakers come back and don't come back. But right now, let's just have some fun with it, kind of where our emotions are at right now with the end of the season being so fresh. And then obviously our emotions on this subject will probably change throughout the year. But if you had to make a tough choice, you only keep 2 of these 3. Christian McCaffrey is coming back. If you only keep 2 of these 3, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Aiyuk, or George Kittle, who are the 2 that you want to see no matter what back in the Niners next year? And if the tough decision has to be made, who are you comfortable with the Niners letting walk in this situation? So FP, we posed this question on before the break. You and I both landed on Deebo Samuel. I cited obviously some durability concerns and how he plays the game, along with the fact that, Christian McCaffrey can largely do a lot of the same things that Deebo Samuel can do. Dove into the YouTube chat during the break there, and the amount of disagreement there on that belief was very palpable. A lot of people love Deebo. They hate the any sort of mention of slandering of Deebo. Slander is a word that gets thrown around here a lot. This isn't a knock against Deebo. When I say I think Deebo's the odd man out, it's more just recognizing the harsh realities of the NFL in that certain guys, the best ability is availability. And Deebo Samuel's missed pockets of time the last couple seasons. And as you get older, your body does not always get stronger. And so if you have to make a tough decision, I think that the move is you move off the guy who you kind of already have his production taken care of in a sense with Christian McCaffrey, but also you're moving off a guy who, if he's an injury risk, you need guys who are going to be on the field, not guys who are not going to be on the field. Like that. That's what I'm getting at.
No. Yeah. And you're making really good points, really solid points, and you sound like a GM because any good GM, any good president of operations has to take the emotion out of it. Mm-hmm. Like if you get personally attached to people, that's when you start making bad decisions because like it's a popularity contest. But what I would say, like contradicting both of our picks, and if I'm on the other side on this, is that like this is a heart and soul guy. This is your swagger guy. This is your guy that's going to push and shove before the game your opponent. This is a guy that's coming out of the tunnel with the boombox. Like this is a guy with all the drip, and I think every team needs multiple players like that. Whether it's Trent Williams, whether it's Deebo, a guy that's your heart and soul guy. I guess you could say that about McCaffrey. You could say that about a lot of Niners, and Bosa and Fred Warner, and hopefully Dre heals quickly from his Achilles thing. So that's a risk. But you have to take educated risks. And I think the one thing I would say, and if you do have to do this, that the 49ers seem to always make the right decisions. Like they get it. They get it on so many different levels of draft picks, of free agent signs. I think the Chase Young experiment is over for me. I don't think you sign that guy back because if you have to tell a guy to play hard in the playoffs and his effort is being questioned on the biggest stage when you're the only game on TV, that's a huge red flag for me. So Debo's the guy. If you're like,
it's a tough
if you're
decision.
making me make that decision, Debo's the guy.
Like I love watching Debo.
But Sam, I would say this, and I ideally want to run it back.
Mm-hmm.
You either get better or you get worse. So obviously you're going to tinker and make some decisions. But like reiterating, if you're just getting in your car, this show Dynasty on Apple TV about the Patriots run, like that's a true dynasty. When you see how they took a chance on Tom Brady and Drew Bledsoe was the highest paid quarterback in football. He just signed a $100 million deal. And then he got hurt and his lung collapsed and there was blood in his lung and Brady came off the bench. And the way I remember that is the rest is history. But Brady struggled a little bit when he first came on. And there was this huge debate. And it's funny, they go to tape of like Chris Collinsworth saying like, Drew Bledsoe's the guy. And I don't know what they're thinking with Tom Brady. And they're calling people the carpet and they're showing clips of Wilbon on the Kornheiser and Wilbon, whatever that is, show on ESPN. PTI. And Wilbon's sitting there going, this is the biggest mistake. They're going with a guy that was drafted in the 6th round, pick number 199 over a $100 million guy. And he's sitting on the bench. And then it had Robert Kraft saying like, I just put all this money into this guy. And Drew Bledsoe was like a son to Kraft. So the reason I'm bringing this up is Brady had his struggles. They stuck with him. Belichick saw this inner just like drive and desire of a winner and a competitor. And against popular opinion, against his owner who paid $100 million to the other quarterback, who a guy that had kind of saved the franchise a little bit in Bledsoe. And now they're going with pick number 199. Who had a bad game against the Rams, who, if you remember, in 2001, the Rams were the team with Kurt Warner, greatest show on turf. So he lost that game, and they stuck with him. Point is there's a lot of similarities and there's a lot of parallels when I was watching this to the Trey Lance thing and 3 first-round draft picks and spending all this money on a first-round pick on this guy. And Brock Purdy's way down here. And then Kyle Shanahan telling Jed York that, I think this is our guy when he was a 3rd-string guy and Jimmy G was there and Trey Lance was there. And to have the faith and the confidence I'm not saying Brock Purdy's Tom Brady in any regard.
No, not at all.
But to have the wherewithal and to see into Brady's persona and the competitor and what he brought to the table and how players gravitated toward him, how the team had confidence in him when there was money invested in somebody else, that somebody else kind of became a cancer in Bledsoe when you watched his comments and how he handled it and how he just didn't take to it. After that Rams game, Brady ran the table. Like he did, the tuck game. So these are things I all forgot about Brady. And while I was watching it last night, and I highly recommend if you guys have Apple TV, maybe get the free trial if you don't want to spend the money on it and watch this. Like there's 2 episodes out right now. One of the best documentaries I've seen in a long time. And it goes back, it shows Tom at Sarah High School. It shows Tom in Little League. It's got footage of him playing baseball as like an 8-year-old. And then it shows him as a quarterback at Sarah. Really, 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 really good documentary. And it relates to the Niners and what you saw with Brock Purdy this year or the past couple of years and how they had confidence. And Kyle saw something that we all didn't in his quarterback. Really good stuff. I think, Sam, the reason I'm saying this is if you want to have a dynasty for a long, long time, you have to make tough decisions, but like make the decisions that are going to win you a ring.
Yeah.
Like Belichick said, I'm making a decision that's best for the entire team. I'm not making a decision that's best for the quarterback room. I'm not making a decision that's best for me. He goes, this decision with Tom Brady is best for the entire franchise and best for the entire team.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, you got to make that decision. Yeah, when you're in that, it's what we all love to play GM on our couch. We love to play fantasy football GM, and we all like to think that, that's how it would be in real life. We were like that. These are incredibly difficult decisions here. I mean, you're talking about, you mentioned, the battle between Tom Brady versus Drew Bledsoe. I was thinking about while you were saying that when it was Stephen Curry or Monte Ellis.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, there was a time where, if there was a choice, who do you go with long-term, Monte or Steph? It's shocking to say this now, but there were arguments that people were making. If you had to pick one, you would want to go with Monte. That's just, again, this is back in like 2010, so it was a very, very long time, not that long ago. But I mean, that was some time ago before Steph was, even close to being Steph.
Dude, I was doing the pre and the post for the Warriors back then, and I would go out to the arena, and I was one of the first guys to interview Steph. It was after a practice, and I had a little microphone. I had my recorder,
Bloop.
And he was so skinny, and he looked like he was 12 years old.
The jersey looked way too big on him.
And back then, his ankles were in question, and his health, and was he durable enough? And then we know how the story ends. But the only thing I would push back a little bit on this, Sam, is he was a first-round pick.
True.
Like, he was your guy. He was your pick.
Yeah.
He came out of Davidson. He had the tournament.
I remember, Don Nelson said after his first preseason game, I still have the newspaper story from his first preseason game. And I remember always the quote that Don Nelson had was, this guy, he could find a house here in the Bay Area. He's not going anywhere. That was Don Nelson's last great gift that he left for the Warriors. Really quick, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Don't forget that you can also watch us every day on our YouTube and Twitch streams. Just log on and search 95.7 The Game. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel while you are there. All that is brought to you by First NorCal Credit Union. Upgrade your savings dividend. Open a First NorCal first class money market today. Big shout out to the Comcast Business text line. And hey, Matt Nahigian, I just want you to know it is a Warriors Wednesday brought to you by Freeman's Appliance, a trusted name since 1922. Visit freedmansappliance.com today. The question we're getting into is if you had to make the tough decision to get rid of one of these three, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, or Brandon Aiyuk, who would you let go? 888-957-9570. Love to hear from the callers on this as well. Both of us kind of picked Deebo. I do think, though, it depends on I think if you're going to move off Deebo, obviously what you move off of him for plays a big role in there. Obviously, you're trying to get a top draft pick. I don't know, maybe you try to move up and get another wide receiver to pair with Brandon Aiyuk. I don't know if wide receiver is even the number one priority in that situation with the Niners. I'm not even sure what the number one need is for the 49ers right now. They need a linebacker to replace Dre Greenlaw, and they need some help on that offensive line. Right tackle's definitely a concern. I think they need another pass rusher on the other side of Nick Bosa, because, again, Chase Young, he's probably not coming back. Randy Gregory, I don't remember him doing anything of note. Cleveland Farrell, he'll be back next year, but, again, you don't know what he'll be like in terms of health-wise there coming off of his injury. So it's a tough situation there for the Niners to handle. All of this, though, is stemming from the future of Brandon Aiyuk in terms of how long he'll be on the team. Will the Niners extend him this offseason? Peter King joined Willard and Dibbs yesterday, and he gave his thought on how the Niners could possibly handle the Brandon Aiyuk conversation. This is what he had to say about that.
We would like to try to run this back this year, one time, and then make our major decisions about our roster at the end of next year. And I think you have to ask Brandon Aiyuk very simply, how do you feel about that? If he's negative about it, if he doesn't want to do it, and clearly, because the quarterback is only going to make $985,000 next year, you probably could figure a way to bury some money in Brandon Aiyuk and figure out where this leaves you for the future. But to me, there's a lot of questions about not only, the offensive, not only the skill players, but all over this roster. And so I think it's difficult. And look, if you're Brandon Aiyuk, I don't blame you for wanting to get a deal now. And the reason, or at the absolute latest, next off season, I don't blame you. And here's the reason why. Because if you look at most great receivers, they get one payday. That's it.
So obviously, again, the lot there. Can you make the pitch to Brandon Aiyuk that, with this group, we can run it back, see if that kind of helps those negotiations a bit? But on the flip side, I agree with what Peter King said at the end there. In this league, you got to chase your bag. You got to get that money when you can. And I'm curious, FP, you've been in this position as a professional athlete. When it comes to that balance of chasing that bag, getting what you're worth, getting paid what you deserve, versus the allure of that of winning. How does that balance come in? Like when players are in a situation where they kind of have to choose between one or the other, going after that championship or chasing that bag, what are those conversations like? What are those feelings like for athletes in that situation?
Well, the bag that I chased was real small. It was like a change purse, if we're going to relate it to my experiences. But it's different for everybody. You could go around a locker room of 53 guys or 26 guys in baseball and ask everyone that question, and everyone might have a different answer. So it's based on your priorities and what motivates you. So a lot of guys, it's winning. It's a parade. It's a ring. And that's all I ever played for. Never got one, but that was my motivation. Winning a baseball game every night, being a good teammate, and winning a championship. And I think, and what the trick is as a coach or a manager at the highest level, is to get your players to believe in that if we win, that takes care of itself. If we win, you'll get paid. If we win a championship and there's a parade on Market Street, everything takes care of itself. Whether we pay you, whether somebody else pays you, the money is going to be there if you're successful and you win. Because at the highest level, that's all that matters is the big W. So if you're Brandon Aiyuk, I can't speak for him. I don't know what motivates him. It might be cars and money and houses and fame and celebrity. Or it could be, yeah, man, I'm in this to win a ring. So, but if you go to Kittle and you go to McCaffrey and you go to Purdy and you go to Fred Warner, they might have different answers. And as a teammate of those guys, I don't care what motivates you. Whatever motivates you, motivates you. If it is the money and the houses and the cars, great. As long as you're in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
As long as you're in it. And I want Brandon Aiyuk to be pissed that he didn't get enough targets.
Yeah.
I want George Kittle to be upset. I want a pitcher that I'm going out to take out of a game be pissed that he's coming out of the game. I want, if my player gets pinch hit, for him to throw a helmet in the dugout. I want guys to be hungry to compete and to contribute. So whatever Aiyuk said or whatever he tweeted or whatever all of his family tweeted about don't forget what got you there, it's true. He's right.
Yeah.
And if I'm Kyle Shanahan or John Lynch, I don't care. Remember, we did a whole show on Kuminga's quotes about he wants to play more and he comes out of games and he doesn't know why. We did a whole show on that. And I said at the time, maybe keep those things internal. Maybe walk into Steve Kerr's office and look him in the eye and say, like, WTF. But like to air it out in public, that was the only thing I'd criticize him for. But if I'm Steve Kerr, I want my guy to want to play more. I want my guy to have confidence. I want my guys to believe in themselves. That's exactly what you're looking for as a coach at the highest level. So whatever Aiyuk said, I have zero problem with it. And if it's me and, taking the math and the equations of salaries and salary caps, which drives me nuts, out of the equation, I want to run it back. I want everybody back. I want to do this one more time. I want to go all in with tinkers here and there, because are you better than the Kansas City Chiefs? Like, you're obviously the best team in the NFC, but the Eagles are going to get better. The Lions are young and hungry, and there's other teams that could be a factor in this. But I think if you're the Niners, there's a huge obstacle in your way that is the dynasty in Kansas City.
Yeah.
And you have to decide what you need to do to compete with that first and foremost. And if you mold your roster in a way that's conducive to beating that team, it beats a lot of other teams too. So that's the dilemma if I'm sitting in the room, like, what do we need to do to be better than them?
Yeah. And I do think I'm kind of curious, like, and maybe there's another question you throw out there, 888-957-9570. Just how wide is that gap between the Niners and the Chiefs? Because again, we're talking about, Peter King mentioned, can you convince Brandon Aiyuk that by running it back, and jumping on board in that sense, if that's being the right move? I do kind of agree with it. My perfect world, I would like everybody to be back as well. This roster is too good, I think, to just give up after, one or two attempts of trying to win the Super Bowl with it. On this station, there's a big conversation, is the 49ers season, is it Super Bowl or bust, or is it Super Bowl or try again? A lot of people especially on this show, Bonte and Shasky, they are very much in the Super Bowl or bust category. And then, of course, our friend Mark Willard, who does, 2 to 6, he was very much in the Super Bowl or try again category. And I would kind of agree with Mark in that sense, because this Niners roster is too good, I think, to just assume that one run or two runs, if you want to include last year's run in the NFC title game, is enough to decide that this isn't enough, that this isn't good enough. Because when you look at the two losses they've had in the last 2 years, the loss to the Eagles, you could say very much that game was lost when Brock Purdy went down. Like, that's what irritated me the most about that game. It wasn't the fact that the Niners lost. It was the fact that Brock Purdy's injury, I think, robbed us of what could have been an incredibly exciting football game. And I think the Niners could have beaten the Eagles in Philadelphia if Brock had stayed healthy. And then they advanced in the Super Bowl against the Chiefs, and who knows what happens there. Probably similar to what happened last week. But again, you hate to play the injury excuse, but how different is that game if Dre Greenlaw doesn't get hurt? FP, the entire second half, I was watching Travis Kelce get open over the middle right behind Oren Burks, who had absolutely no idea where he was supposed to go, where he was supposed to line up. And we can kind of pick this up on the other side, too. Is it just better? Yeah. Is this Niners team good enough to just run it back no matter what? Just keep it together as is, make some tinkerings on the edges, and let's run it back with this group. I want